meeting. Present is Mayor Hughes, Chief Delp, Councilpersons Benedetti, Wolf, and McNamara. Today, I guess we'll maybe just start off with what Chief had, I wouldn't say call the meeting about, but the license plate identifier. Unfortunately, I didn't have a chance to look at that yet, but maybe you give us a brief description of that technology.
Sure.
Lemmy, you muted yourself.
Unmute.
Sorry.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
Perfect. Okay. Councilman McNamara, I apologize. I had Bruder as on the safety committee, not you. I sent out an email earlier with some information regarding a standalone license plate reader. This basically is it's the same, very similar technology to the license plate readers you might see on the tops of the police vehicles that if you've ever seen the cameras that are on the top there, and they read a license plate and they check it against a hot list of stolen or wanted people, stolen vehicles or wanted people, and then pops up on an officer's screen that this vehicle is wanted. And it gives a picture and the picture of the license plate. So I was contacted last year by a company called Flock LPR, and it basically it's a standalone stationary license plate reader. Cities might install them in their high traffic areas, and they vehicle drives by and it records all the vehicles that drive by for a certain amount of time and runs the license plates. If in fact it does come out on a wanted or hit, it then uses a cellular signal to send a message to on-duty officers, and then they can respond to that area and look for that vehicle. That's basically what it is. The thought that I had was maybe this is one of those things we put up over near the basketball court or on the way in to the basketball court. So we won't have those issues we had last year with we had the wanted person that was going over there. Person, we had the reports that supposedly displayed a gun to one of the residents. And then turns out that person was a wanted felon who coincidentally after that was in a high-speed chase with the either Clinton or Mifflin, I can't remember who, Columbus. But this system is just there. It's the reason I brought it to safety was I don't know if it's something that the village is interested in pursuing. There is a cost. Initially, it's a $2,500 a year cost for the basic, I guess, the rental of the unit. They maintain it, they service it if there's anything wrong with it, and then they supply the software to as many users as we want, which I guess in our case would be 4 because it'd be 1 in each vehicle. And then there's an initial setup, like installation fee of $250, and after that, it's just that $2,500 a year cost.
Is this like on a trailer or something? I mean, how does it?
No, it's actually on a post in the ground.
And it's like it would be put. I mean, do you have to move the post around if you wanted to put it in different locations?
I think if we want to relocate it, we would have to contact that company and they would move it to a different location for us. And they'd probably charge us another $250.
Right, the time.
The whole selling point
this,
they gave was these large cities like the Dayton have them in multiple locations around the city. And then it actually tracks vehicles. One of the cool things that did pique my interest was you can search for a color of vehicle. So let's say that we had an incident in that area that involved a silver vehicle. Even though that vehicle isn't wanted or stolen, you can actually put in search for silver vehicles, and it'll show you pictures of all the silver vehicles that came through during whatever time frame that you wanted. That was kind of a cool feature. And it may help eliminate some of the criminal element that was coming over to the basketball court. I don't know.
Well, have we gotten any kind of pricing on what cameras are going to cost us and or what they could cost?
Hey.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. That was
Yeah.
that was an Eric thing, I believe.
Correct. It was an Eric thing, and the numbers that he has thrown to me are 25,000 plus because of there. You can't just do cellular or yada yada yada. So yeah, the cameras have to be installed to something. You have to have something that will send a signal back to the cruisers, and it's not cheap. It's not like putting in, my initial thought was, why can't we just put Wi-Fi over in multiple different areas, which would entail, obviously internet or some sort of router of something there in order to put out the signal in order to operate a camera. So for example, everybody knows I have cameras. I have Wi-Fi and I have them on multiple locations of my house, but you have to have internet in order for that to work. Now you can, obviously I guess I get a text or whatever, but that's not going to work in these areas, as far as that goes. It's not going to be that easy to get internet in those particular places. So other than that, it would do something off of either a cellular or some sort of something like that. And he says, in order to do that, we've got to go through KGT, and he was giving me cost of over $25,000.
And
How
what is
accurate
that?
that is, I'm not
Is
sure.
that to get like the internet to those areas?
No,
Is
that
the
was to do cameras without doing, just like an internet-based thing. Again, and he would be a better person to ask, but he was reaching out to KGT to get that information, but it is nowhere near $2,500. I agree with Chief. And again, we don't have to put this over by the basketball court. That was just, part of the conversation that we've had was, what types of things. Obviously, you guys saw multiple times silver car flying over by the basketball court. Those were the types of things that you were seeing. So the feature that I liked was being able to pull certain color of cars and being able to get license tags from those cars. And then, being able to monitor which cars are there at what, all of that stuff. Now, this is, again, a feature that if this worked, it would be nice to have more than one in different locations, whether or not you guys are completely aware, and I don't know what all I'm allowed to say. So, I know that, and you guys know from Facebook postings that we've had multiple people get cars stolen and things like that in the village. So again, if we were looking for a specific car, it would be nice to see that. And what happens with those is it's typically somebody driving around the village and they have multiple people in the car, and then they get out of the car and then they go steal the cars. So I think that, this is just another tool for the village to be able to use, to know who's coming in and out of the village. And I know for some people, well, that's an invasion of privacy, but in other people's minds, the more we protect the residents in the village, the happier a lot of the residents will be.
Sure. In the same vein, people who capture porch pirates on their Ring, their doorbell cam or what have you, and all they see is a blue make and model, we could use this that same feature as a tool to, help hunt that down. I think it's interesting. I think $2,500 is a lot less than 25 grand, and I would think that at least two would be, because one around the basketball court would give a lot of people a peace of mind.
Agreed.
Right? That's also one of the areas that we get regular speeding complaints, right? And then Minerva Lake Road is another regular speeding complaint. and it might help those things. I would be curious, is it capturing any other metadata? So not that it's a speeding cam, but is it also capturing speed data? Is it also capturing anything other than just video?
Yeah, the only thing it's doing is when it hits a license plate, it records that image of the license plate and the vehicle.
Okay,
And then you can, if for some reason you know the license plate, you can search the system for a license plate.
right,
We had a suspect that said, hey, blah, blah, and well, there it is. We have that. Now we know what vehicle it was. And
Right.
it confirms that it was in the area at that time. I mean, the data is that's it. I mean, it's that, I mean, in some cases, I think you could say pickup truck, like the system's smart enough to know the difference between a truck and a car. But when it was being demoed to me, I did notice that cars and SUVs came up kind of the same. So
UPS truck, FedEx truck.
yeah, I didn't see any of those. But yes, I imagine there's going to be some overlap. But it seemed like it was few. It was easily to scan. It was pretty easy to scan through. And it's stored on the cloud. So somebody comes by and decides to smash the thing. We call the company and say, hey, it's smashed, come get it, but we still have the data.
yeah, and there's a warranty. I saw looking at the thing that there's warranty stuff for that kind of situation.
So if you were to get two of them, would it be $5,000 a year, or is it like
Yeah,
okay?
Yeah, and Mr. McNamara, I sent you an email regarding the information.
All right.
You got that?
I forwarded it to him as well as soon as I realized he didn't get it.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Yeah, my biggest concern is probably along Councilman Wolf's with regards to metadata and privacy as well. So I'd be interested in knowing, like, what happens to the information that ends up being uneventful, so to speak, an unwanted, or not unwanted, a car without a warrant or interest drives through. What happens to that data?
It's kind of
That's no different
similar
than
to
driving down any street, though.
Yeah, that's
what's
true.
the issues with the camp with the you get a ticket for speeding. I mean, what's been
Right.
that?
Well, so that's because people were trying to write, the municipalities were writing citations and demanding payment, right? That's not necessarily what this is doing,
No.
right? This is alerting on known vehicles of interest, or allowing us to review for vehicles of interest, right?
Yeah, basically, it's only gonna alert on stolen vehicles and people with warrants, and that is connected with county records.
Right.
So anything
Okay.
that's uploaded into the law enforcement automated data system, LEADS, is gonna an NCIC. So if somebody from another state came and they were wanted in that state, there's a chance that it could show up on that hot list. The company takes care of that. As far as the if we were going to do two, wow, I don't know. We would have to definitely set it down and kind of strategize about placement of the units. Putting one right beside the basketball court doesn't seem like such a grand idea, but maybe put one at the entrance by Lakeview does.
Yeah.
And then one at the entrance to MI at Farview. I don't know.
It's like choke points in the village where you got to go through certain, intersections, and you could.
Well,
I want to call
we got 9 entrances. That's one of our biggest problems is there's 9 ways in and 9 ways out, and and 8 of them are interconnected now.
Yeah.
Correct.
But so back to privacy, privacy has been tested by the Supreme Court, and there is no expectation of privacy in a public space. So if you are driving a car on a public road, there is no legal expectation of privacy.
Big brother's out there.
And,
Absolutely.
and again, the only thing that we have is a photograph of a vehicle and a license plate.
Mhm.
The only way you get that information is then to take that information from that license plate and go to a separate information source to get that information. So it would be no different than if Councilman Wolf had a camera on his front porch that recorded all the vehicles driving by his house each day.
Right.
Most of us have those. I'll be the first to admit, mine gets cameras on every car that drives down my street.
So yeah,
It does, because
there's no data associated with that's kept in the cloud. The data that we get shows up on our secured MDTs in our vehicle, which says, hey, here is a possible hit on this plate, and it could be this wanted person. The officer then has to take that information and cross-check it to make sure it's accurate. Then he can go to the area and look for the vehicle. If he finds the vehicle, then he sets on it, or he waits, or maybe it's occupied, or maybe it's just driving through. If we were going to do two, it might be interesting to put one at each end of the village. You would know who's coming and going. It would be cost prohibitive to put one at every entrance. That would just be outrageous. But yeah, I mean,
$2,500 doesn't sound like a lot.
Although
I
many
mean,
people wanted,
it's about $200 a month. If you $200 and some dollars a month for the rental for each unit. So if we have a way, because we try to go over there and be present to deter criminal activity. But the problems that we had last year was there were really bad people coming over and interfering with really good people trying to enjoy the basketball court. And if they find out that we are responding to them before anybody calls, because we have the technology to be alerted when wanted people come into the village, they would avoid the area. And I think it might help reduce some of the problems we're having.
how long is data stored in the cloud? Do we know?
I think it burns off. I was just trying to look to see if that was in that email, but I think you have a 30-day look back.
Okay. And does the existence of that is that then a public record? So if somebody knows that we have this month's worth of data, could that then be FOIA'd? Could that be subpoenaed? I'm Johnny who lives on Briar Rose. I don't think there's a Johnny on Briar Rose, so I just made that up. Suspects his wife of cheating. Can he FOIA to see, if
in a
her
public
guy he
records
thinks,
request.
yeah, can he look to see if the car that he thinks her boyfriend drives is coming down Briar Road, every day, or when he's not home, or I'm just curious, that would be, I don't know that I care that much, but it's just an annoyance to have in the back of the mind.
Well,
So,
you could be
as it
required.
stands right now, it's a good question. I would probably have to refer it to our law team for research on the public records. But typically, information involving license plates is not subject to public record. But it's an interesting question. I don't know if it would fall under that license plate exemption or not.
If you didn't ask for the license plate, you just asked to see purple.
Car. Yeah.
Right.
That is a good question. I'm writing that one down, guys.
I mean, beyond sort of these, I would even say surface concerns, right? Like even if it was a public record, I don't know that would dissuade me, right? It's just a thing to keep in mind. I think our biggest, Hmm?
It could,
Yeah.
it could get annoying if people started to,
It could be, but I mean, I don't think, I, please correct me if I'm wrong, Mayor, but I don't know how many public records requests we actually get.
Very few.
And
Yeah.
I was thinking back
I
to,
stopped.
Yeah.
I was thinking back to my life before Minerva Park. At that agency, we had a license plate reader, and I don't recall any public records request involving the, like, was my license plate caught
Yeah.
on a license plate reader?
Well, I think the first thing people have to know you're using it, and then, so that, you just made me think of another question I had at the beginning is, do we have license plate reading functionality on our cruisers?
We have a non-functioning license plate reader on a cruiser.
Okay.
It will not be on the cruiser when the new one comes in. It's the one that's getting traded in. It was basically some leftover parts that the county had, and they said, hey, we've got a license plate reader we could probably put together for you if you guys want it. And we were like, well, how much does it cost? They go, well, it's free. And we're like, then yes, please. And they put it on, it ran pretty well for about a year. The officers that were assigned to the vehicle were picking up warrants and getting guns and narcotics off the streets with it, because it would hit on a car for a possible warrant. You'd turn, find the vehicle, check it, confirm it, stop the vehicle. And then, of course, people who have warrants typically aren't the most law-abiding people. And, there's usually secondary crimes involved in that traffic stop.
So, okay, so that brings up a handful more questions for me. The first is, what is generally the cost of a license plate reader that would go on a cruiser?
About $5,000, maybe. They're pretty
Okay.
expensive.
So that is considerably more, because my thought would be, if it weren't more expensive, it would seem to be maybe more.
I get you
if you
were
put them on
going,
all the
because
cruisers.
I think that the license plate readers were great. They can be annoying sometimes because occasionally there will be, for instance, the one we had was hitting on a mailbox down on Minerva Lake Road. So when you drove by the mailbox, you got a partial hit on a wanted person every time we drove by that mailbox, and it would pop up on your screen, and it's this annoying little, alarm that goes off, and you go, what? So like, it's the mailbox, because you see the picture, and it's a mailbox, and you're like, cancel. And
Right.
so the ones who used the system would turn it off, and then when they were patrolling a high traffic area, they would turn it on. So like if they were out on Cleveland Avenue, 161, or if they were setting over at Farview or something, they would Minerva Lake Road to the east side of the village, where you get more traffic. They would use it then, but if they were just driving around, they typically turned it off because they didn't like the false positives. So the other thing that's going on right now is, since they removed the front license plates from vehicles, you're only going to get them when it passes the vehicle too. So it's a little more limited. It used to be able to run traffic both directions. Now it's just mainly
when they're going away from you.
when they're going away from it. Yeah.
Well, that's going to be the case with a stationary one or
That is correct.
or a cruiser, right? That doesn't change.
Nope, that's correct. But with the stationary, and if it is at the entrance, like say you put one over at Lakewood, and then anybody coming in off of Cleveland Avenue, it would get the back of their vehicle.
Right.
Put one over on Farview, anyone coming in from the Farview side, it would get the back of their vehicle as they passed.
Right.
And then we would know, which direction they were traveling, and where they were last seen. So I don't know. I mean, do you put it on Quiet Brook Vale? Do you put it on Farview? So that's why I mean, we really have to sit down and strategize to kind of figure out what would be the best use of two.
Well, yeah, I'm the type of person that need to think about this for a while.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
there's
wouldn't be opposed. I'm sure that the company you got the information from would, give us another demo. I wouldn't be opposed to seeing their demo either. Or if they have just I didn't check out a website or anything yet. If they had one on their website, I could probably just watch that. Just to get more information.
I do not know either. I did inquire back prior to setting this meeting if it would be possible to get a 30-day trial.
Mhm.
So we could just try it, see what kind of information we're getting, or if how it works live. Because in the village, there's not a ton of traffic in a day.
Right.
So I don't know if it would be if it's even worthwhile, or if it's something that would benefit us if we had it. I mean, we don't know until we know, I guess.
Yeah, I'd definitely be more in favor of a brief trial rather than going all out, because I mean, we're not a city of the size of, Columbus or Dayton, but I definitely get the desire to explore this kind of stuff. It seems like it could have some good uses.
Yeah, and like I said, some of those places have multiple units on. Like, if you have a main road that goes through your city, you can actually get hits on multiple units, and it's almost like you're tracking the vehicle live. Because it just passed the unit 3, which is located intersection of X and Y. I can go around the corner, and this vehicle should be right here, and ta-da, there it is. So you get directionality and stuff like that. But if we're just gonna monitor the activity around a certain area of the village, then we could put in 1 or 2 and probably accomplish the goal. But yeah, I reached out. I haven't heard back about a trial. He's normally pretty responsive, but we'll see. I'll reach out again.
Okay.
All right. Well, I think we'll agree to think about that and wait and see what we hear about the a demo, and maybe we can move on. And if you're, the next thing I think we can talk about is the incident on Facebook. Let's hear what, or have the chief report to the committee here what happened.
I'll say that.
And what you can't, whatever you can say.
Yeah, I think I'm just gonna leave it as there was a traffic stop. There was a consent search. The parents feel that it was unwarranted. It was very professional, and it was not an aggressive or intimidating thing in any way, and I'll leave it at that.
Well, I don't know if anybody had heard the details, is that there was a reason for the stop. That's, I think that, I've heard that the Facebook page is getting, crazy. I don't know what that means exactly, but, I think the important thing to remember here is that I've been pulled over for not having a light, a broken light. I don't know how many times, especially growing up, when I was younger. I mean, that's just what police do. And I don't see anything wrong with that. I guess that really for me, kind of glad that I'm been, the safety committee chair now, because that really goes to me of how our police operate, I guess is a way to describe it, in that you know, we pull people over for those little, you know, I hate to say petty reasons. You know, I was pulled over recently for making a left turn onto a, uh, you know, 2-lane road into the right lane. You know, that's against the law to do that. And police officers have the right to pull you over for that. And, you know, so that stuff happens. And I guess, I don't know if, you know, if we need to have this conversation, do we want to be a village that pulls people over for these petty little things or not? You know, and, you know, I hate to put it like that, these petty things. And, you know, it's kind of a rhetorical question because you know, I think I already know the answer is that you have to do these things in order to catch people doing something wrong. And that's what I think is at the bottom of this issue is that, uh, you know, it's a common police practice. It has nothing to do with race. It's just you know, I wouldn't say a behavior, you know, it's a tool that the police have. You know, I don't know what other people on council feel about, you know, pulling people over for having a broken light or not, you know, whether that's worth it.
So there's two things that are buried into that situation, right? Right. Pulling someone over for a broken light could be seen as a service. You are operating a vehicle dangerously because it's not properly illuminated. So pulling someone over for the purpose to let them know that they are in violation of you know, code or whatever, that the light isn't lit. But where those kinds of stops can become problematic is when they are pre-contextual, right? When it is that we are using this minor, and to use Tony's word, petty reason to pull someone over, we will then parlay that or leverage that into a deeper contact, right? You know, I pulled you over because your tail light was out. I smell marijuana. May I search your car? Right? If you really were just looking to search your car, and you know, it's a heck of a lot easier to search someone's car once they've stopped. That's when it becomes problematic, right? When it's a you know, it's almost performative, or it could be performative. I saw you veer across the center line of the road, right? So I've pulled you over for that to give you a warning. Is there anything illegal in the car? May I search it? Right? That again is a very easy pre-contextualized stop. Now, on the other hand, the Supreme Court has also ruled that those are completely legal. Now, just because it's legal doesn't mean it's moral, but that is where those kinds of stops, in my opinion, can be problematic.
Well, maybe I need to be more specific, and because when I say petty, is, you know, when you're hitting or getting pulled over for a safety concern, and you know, in this particular case, it was and maybe I'm splitting hairs, but it was the license plate light
Sure.
that was out, you know, and that's why I should have been more specific. It's like, I agree with what you're saying about, you know, someone does something unsafe. There's you're obligated, I would say, to pull them over. You know, maybe that's all I'm talking about is if they could stop pulling people over for a non-safe, you know, action, maybe. I don't know.
You know, again, I'm with you. I think that again, yeah, because this incident in particular was in fact the license plate light being out, and you know, we have to. It's really tough, right? Because we allow our officers a lot of latitude in how they conduct their job, because that's how they can be successful in accomplishing the things that we'd like to accomplish, right? It's not, I'm sure you don't have to dig very far to find a scenario where a police officer has pulled someone over because the license plate light was out, and in the process of that investigation, realized taking drugs off streets, taking illegal guns off streets, right?
Yeah,
And so it's a very tough call.
I would say that I'm in favor of the Minerva Park Police having a strict, you know, policy about that kind of stuff. And, you know, because growing up, I was in the North End. We avoided the section of Cleveland Avenue that Minerva Park Police had authority over like the plague growing up, because we did not want to get pulled over, because they pull you over for anything, just like, you know, this happened, you know, and I'm not opposed to that. And I will, you know, go on record as saying, I think just like having these cameras, I think could be a positive thing, just letting people know that we got cameras and put pictures or, you know, signs up saying smile, or I wouldn't say smile, but your license plate being recorded, and let people know that that's happening. And that in itself could be a deterrent to keeping people away. You know, so I'm in favor of the police having a strict policy and to be known to be, you know, I don't want to say unfair. And I think, you know, this case too will show that everything was done according to the book and no one really did anything wrong.
Yeah,
So-
no, I agree. I mean, you know, my understanding of the event seemed like this particular event was good and proper in general, right? I don't see anything wrong with this one. But, you know, from a higher concept, these kinds of stops for the purpose of obtaining deeper contact for other reasons, right? If it's I think this car is nefarious because I have, you know, deep intuitions, so I will pull it over for, you know, something less than a serious offense, and then parlaying that into a search or deeper contact or what have you. That's where that kind of thing can be problematic.
Yeah, that's my biggest issue as well, that individual stops are unlikely nefarious, and especially with, you know, Minerva Park, it's not like we're some crazy high crime area, but they can be tools to do everything from, you know, extract revenue, so to speak, to even profile unfairly. So, I mean, that's something we have to keep in mind.
I think
Well-
there's a lot that I could say that like my head has obviously been spinning the entire day. I'm sure Chief has too. So without once again saying too much, Brian, I'm glad you pointed that out, because when you don't pull anybody over, or in the village, you only pull people over that are making serious 55 miles an hour. You're not going to get the guns off the street. You're not going to get the drugs off the street. You know, this is an unfortunate situation. I have teenagers, and most of us do have children. So, you know, in a parent's mind, everything goes through your mind, and I totally understand that. But at the end of the day, officers have a job to do, and their job is to make our community safe. There is an extreme pressure from residents, if you guys all want to agree or disagree, but to stop speeders, to make sure that there's not an incident at the basketball court, to, you know, we have a large amount of vocal people in the village that are not happy about the car break-ins and the car thefts and those types of things. So if we are not proactive in pulling people over for some of the minor things, you're not going to catch some of the criminals. And I hate to use the word criminals, but clearly these kids were not doing anything wrong. And I would also like to say that, you know what, hopefully today they went out and they fixed their license plate thing. I think this was, again, Brian, I've seen the video as well. These kids handled the situation perfectly. I think if all kids handled a situation like this, I hate calling them kids because they're 17. They handled the situation very well. I believe our officer handled the situation extremely well. It was, I think if more people saw the video, it would probably ease a lot of people's mind. it is a little heartbreaking for me knowing the officers and knowing our police department, knowing that I truly believe our officers are as upstanding as they could possibly be. So to watch some of the comments for me is a little depressing, but I don't want to go into further on that. But at the end of the day, we have a high pressure from residents to make sure that we are protecting inside and around our village, and petty or not. I don't want to be the village that, you know, people are scared to drive through on in that hand. I agree. But in the same sense, we do have to make sure that our officers are doing their job. And for us to tell them that we don't like the way that they're doing their job because they are getting guns and drugs and, you know, different things off of the street is the chief is doing an amazing job, and I have no issue with the way he's handling things.
I agree. You know, and I said to Chief when I met with him earlier today, that, you know, in its current iteration, I have never had any issues with Minerva Park Police. I think that they do a great job. In all of that though, I just had a thought, and that is that, you know, not all biases are explicit, right? It would be interesting if we have data that would show stops with the race of the driver and searches, right? Because that kind of data could prove out if there is at least a correlation to bias. It wouldn't necessarily prove bias, but it could show whether there is a correlation. So if we are searching or requesting a search every time, well, then there's definitely no bias. But if it seems like the data would prove out that we are only searching, you know, under certain racial scenarios, then maybe, and again, I'm not saying that it is explicit, I'm saying that there is always the possibility of an implicit bias. And that could be something that we could learn if that is the case, if that data is available.
And I haven't seen this video, so anything I said a moment ago was purely conceptual or from experiences in the town I grew up in. That kind of stuff was known to happen occasionally, but again, I've never had any experiences with Minerva Park, nor have I heard of any until today.
Right. And as far as that goes, I can't speak, and Chief's not going to speak on things that happened 10 years ago. He wasn't the chief there.
Right.
And, you know, I know that people do have a bad, and Tony said it from years ago. And I laugh because my mother used to say the same thing. Don't go drive through Minerva Park. And this is, you know, my parents lived over there. I'm not kidding. It was said. So, but again, we can't continue to have the same, what happened 10 years ago is not the same. And none of the officers are the same. The chief is not the same. The mayor is not the same. Nobody's the same. And you can't hold a Minerva Park Police Department. You can't continue to wrap it up. You can, but you know, at the end of the day, it's not a fair statement to say, you know, Minerva Park's always been like that. Okay, well, Minerva Park itself is, again, I can't state that, but none of us are the same people. Just like saying council's horrible. Which one?
Well, I do. I
The
mean,
current
it
one,
is,
no.
I mean, the reality though is there was, you know, I know a lot of people that have complained about the police department in the past. And this is
Oh,
like
yeah.
you were saying, you know, they don't have the great, well, you know, the thing is, I don't think any police department has a very good reputation to get right down to to it, is that they've all, you know, had problems with this subject, and we're no different than anybody else. But I agree completely that, you know, I don't feel that it's anything near what it was in the past, and I haven't seen any evidence lately. Period.
So I guess, so Chief, the kind of data analysis that I was just suggesting, is that something that we would have data on?
We have demographic data on traffic stops. I would have to do some serious digging to determine if searches were done.
Okay.
To record that, but I will
It
say
is
that
easy to do just a black and white. I hate to, you know, or I don't know how, don't you, that's a quick one.
sort of, yes. We, as part of the Ohio Collaborative, we began recording the demographics of all our stops 2 years ago. And that was in an old RMS. So I would have to see the way that that worked was they didn't have place to record race. So we were putting race and sex in the middle name of the recorded stop. So we had first name, last name, maybe their driver's license number, the description, the vehicle that it was. And then as a middle name, we put like male white, female white, etc. As far as searches, this particular officer does that quite a bit. He pulls cars over, and it's kind of his thing. He pulls them over and he says, "Is there anything illegal in the car?" No. They say, "Can I look?" They may say no. They may say, "Sure, go ahead." And in that case, he has removed guns and drugs from the street doing that. Do all the officers on the department do it? No, but it's an option. And as Councilman Wolf explained earlier, it's a tool. You can stop a vehicle. During that stop, you find a reason to stop a vehicle. During that contact, you ask, is there anything illegal in the vehicle and can I search? And if they allow you to search, then you may search.
Happens to me all the
So-
time. And I'm a white guy.
So Mayor Hughes, I'd roll back to one thing that you said, that the kids handled themselves perfectly as a person. I would say that in general, I would always tell my kids to never consent to a search, but that's a different animal.
And that's
Yeah,
again, one of
that's
your
where I would be
personal-
if I had kids too, but yeah.
I would tell my kids to listen to the officers and do what the officers have told them.
Yep, be
Um,
respectful,
that's-
yes or no, sir, but
That's-
yeah, but that's a different animal.
Brian, I haven't had that conversation with my kids.
Never consent to a search, because they can never, and I don't know, I might hurt the chief's feelings, but a search can never improve your situation, right? If they find nothing, it just stole your time. And Lord only knows, right? Someone threw something through my back open window when I wasn't looking, and now I'm 20 to life, right?
All right. Well, I don't look at things that way. So, I mean, as far as that goes, I guess I would never be concerned about somebody searching my vehicle. So, and I would tell my kids, but again, what I would do or what you would do, I mean, the moral of
here
the
nor
story
there.
is, the parents are upset.
Yeah.
The chief and,
So-
that's where we are. And
I'd like to
again,
know what it is. If you had, Chief had conversations with the law director about what we can or should or shouldn't say about this, because, I've got, I wouldn't say pressure, but I know people are going to want to hear, our side of the story, I guess, and, that's where I don't think avoiding this is going to be helpful. So I guess my question is, what are we allowed to say about this? Can I say something on the Facebook page of that,
I'm going to let chief
that
answer.
everything was, I've seen the video and everything was done appropriately, or everyone behaved appropriately. I mean, I think we need to talk about some kind of a response to this. I don't,
I think there's probably multiple levels. I'm going to let chief answer that, because I don't know if it matters whether or not there's been a formal complaint, a non-formal complaint, minors versus, so I'll let chief.
So
answer.
we met with the parents of the driver. We briefly met with the parents of the passenger. One of the parent of the passenger, and we've done our best to explain what happened. I think that explanation was accepted, and we would like to move on from this. It was basically I don't know if it was misheard, misunderstood, the reason for the stop, but once the reason for the stop was explained, it was different. So that's all I'm going to say. The press release has been given to the law director. They'll look it over and see what we can release. It's difficult because it involves juveniles, and juveniles have protections that adults do not. So we don't know. For instance, we would love to release the video, but the video we're about 98% sure is not a public record because of the juvenile images that are on the video. We don't know if blurring out their faces and deleting the audio of any identifying information would suffice to be able to release. So that's all right now being researched by the law firm. So that's where we're at.
So I guess I'm just trying to figure out what it says. We're waiting on our law director to determine about we're going to put out a press release.
Yeah, if necessary. You know, I mean, we were kind of hoping that maybe the family would kind of sit there and explain that they met with the police, and but we'll see.
How long do you anticipate think that's going to be before they got a determination about what the press release is going to be?
That one will probably come fairly quick. You know,
Next couple of days?
I would, if that.
Okay.
The research on the public records may be a little longer because nobody had a clear answer. The way it reads is any police record that contains the image of a juvenile is not public record and should not be released. And so we're like, okay, because it's in their hands. They're researching it. I guess when they come up with an answer, I'll have an answer.
Well,
I'm 98% sure I'm 98% sure we can't release it.
Right. I just see that there's been some calls for to see the video. I mean, well, Brian, you were one of them now I think about it.
Yeah, no, and
I don't know if this is going to blow over or not.
Yeah,
I hate to say blow over, but
I did see it with the juveniles identifying information redacted, right? And so I think that the video is a complete exoneration of our officers and their processes. I mean, so much to the end that, you know, if there was any ill will or whatever, everybody was sure happy about the whole thing going on. I mean, there were laughs and jokes and friendly conversation along the way. There wasn't an ounce of aggression. There wasn't an ounce of raised voices. You know, I've had more contentious stops when I was pulled over and I was absolutely in the wrong. So I don't know. I don't know how much nicer it could have been. But all that said, I guess my thought in the public record, and I don't know if it's worth raising the idea to our law directors, but the parents in their Facebook post have already identified their juvenile, right? So when I read the exception to the public records law that any identifying information for a juvenile or exposing identifying information, but the parents have already done that, right? So they've already lifted that veil. So I'm wondering if that might be a way to explain around it if we really wanted to release it. I almost think that it's better to let it blow over, because the longer people talk about it, the worse it'll be in people's imagination, no matter how much you prove that you're not wrong.
I don't think that the parents releasing the identifying information relieves us of the responsibility of not.
I mean, that's certainly also possible. You know.
Well, like we're going to have to take a wait and see.
Yeah, exactly.
People react.
Well, and and whether or not this matters, but I know as a mom, I could definitely see myself, being upset and making, a statement or this or that, but I also don't know that I would want my child's video out there either. So I do think we hold a responsibility to not only do the right thing, but do the right thing for everybody involved. And I think that's why you get the attorneys involved. You do all of that, because at the end of the day, again, I know that she was upset. And at this point, releasing it may just be another not good thing. So even though, you know, I do think it would really ease a lot of people's minds, it's not going to change everybody's minds. You know, because at the end of the day, I think that it's wait and see for the attorney. Because I still don't
Sure.
know that, you know, releasing it, that the parents would be thrilled about that. So,
To me, it sounds like it'd be a great teaching moment if it's like it's been described. You know, to be a good example of how everyone should act in a traffic stop. You know, that's
With that one exception,
what's that?
with that one exception,
well,
never consent to a search.
yeah. And again, that's
Well-
something you know, let's just be honest. I've gotten one speeding ticket in my life because I am the person that's always like, so yeah, I mean, I've never had to be in that situation. So I guess I can tell, you know, I can say what I want, but I've never had to say yes or no. I guess I would just assume I would say yes. Maybe I'm gonna learn from you, Brian.
Ask any lawyer you know if you should ever consent to a search. Just make an
Of course, an
informal
attorney's
poll
gonna
of
say no.
every attorney you know.
I'll ask our attorney when we talk to him next.
There you go.
I'm teasing. I'm totally teasing.
Yeah. that's
Um,
given.
anything else, Tony?
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Did anybody else have anything they'd like to bring up in the safety committee meeting?
Nope, I'm good. Just one more thing real quick. We've looked around the village and we haven't spotted any places where no parking here to corner would enhance the safety of the village. So I think what's done is done. And I think the problem areas have resolved themselves. We haven't had any more issues at the main location, which was Black Sycamore and Quiet Brook Vale. Which was the major complaint of that occurring, where the sight lines were out so bad that people were pulling out in front of traffic. So that's been, I think, corrected, and none of the other places in the village seem to be an issue at this time.
Sounds good to me.
I
Awesome.
had a feeling that if there was a problem, somebody had already been complaining about it in the existing part of the village.
Well, and as summer rolls around and things get busier and all of that, and we start getting these school traffic and all that, you never know. There might be something that pops up, but I agree. Right now, there's nothing.
All right, then. Well, if no one else has anything else, I move to adjourn.
Second.
All right, aye.
Bye,
Hey,
guys.
everybody.
Hey,
Thank
guys.
you, everyone.
Bye.